In this video, I'm going to show you 5 ways to answer difficult questions at work as a new manager without unraveling or losing credibility. Have you ever been asked a question in a meeting and immediately thought, uh-oh? Have you ever left a meeting and wished that you had answered a question differently? If you are a new manager, you know that this experience is not new. It's something that most likely happens to you in most meetings that you have been a part of since you became a leader. But today, I bring you help. In this video, I'm going to share 5 practical techniques that you can use to confidently answer questions at work, including those difficult, nerve-wracking ones. Let's get into it. First of all, like I've mentioned, difficult questions are not strange occurrences in the workplace, especially when you get into a leadership position. Now, there are 5 ways that you can answer these questions confidently and with credibility. The first way that I want to share with you today is to ask for clarification. When you're asked a question, it's often important that you ensure that you are answering the right question. You see, many times when you're asked a question at work, you may get into the headspace where your mind is spinning. You're not sure why the question is even being asked and why now. Couldn't they have called me out and asked me that question in a less threatening space? But here you are being faced with this question. So the first thing that I often tell people is, I cannot answer a question that I do not understand. So when you don't understand a question, or maybe the way the person asked that question is vague, make sure to ask for clarification. Asking for clarification not only ensures that you are answering the right question, it also helps you buy some time. And I'm going to be sharing why you need that time in the next point. But for now, make sure that you're asking for clarification, especially when you're not clear on the question being asked or when you don't understand the question being asked. How can you ask for clarification? You can start by asking the person to, hey, could you clarify the question you're asking for me? Because I want to ensure that I'm giving you the right answer or I'm giving you the right information. You can also say, just to be clear, are you asking? Then you repeat the question that you believe they are asking. So you re-ask that question the way that you understood it. What this does is that it gives that person the opportunity to say, yes, that is what I would love to know, or no, and then ask you the question again. Hopefully, this time around, they ask it in a better, clearer way. So that's the first way to answer tough questions without unraveling. Ask for clarification when you're not sure what is being asked. Number 2 is to use a structure when you're asked a question and you want to answer. Use a structure. By structure, I mean use a framework. This is how I often describe the importance of using a structure when you're speaking generally, not even just about answering questions. Imagine you have someone gives you about 30 oranges to carry, and they want you to carry it in your arms like that. No bag, no basket, nothing. Pack the 20 oranges in your hands and carry them. Chances are you're going to have some of those oranges dropping off your hand as you carry the oranges and walk. Now, that is what your speech looks like when they are not structured. When you're asked a question, especially a tough one. There is something that happens in your mind. It's called the fight or flight syndrome. What is happening is you feel threatened. Your credibility as a leader feels threatened. You feel like somebody is about to find out that you have been pretending or winging it as a leader, or you're not really the manager spec. You don't have the manager spec, right? So, in these situations, it helps to put your thoughts in a structure. Using that orange analogy, imagine that the structure is a bag or a basket. You can have small bags and put maybe 10 oranges in one bag and another 10 in another bag. That gives you two easy to carry bags of oranges. That is what having a structure does to your speech, especially when you are asked a tough question. It helps you not to ramble. It helps you not to go all over the place trying to answer that question. Secondly, it helps you to answer in a way that ensures that the person that asked that question is getting the feedback that they want. They are finding it easy to follow your train of thought. And by so doing, they can understand what you're saying and that conversation moves on smoothly. I have several ways, there are several structures out there or several frameworks out there that you can use. One of the easiest ones that I love using is the PrEP framework, is PREP, where the P stands for the main point that you want to share. The R stands for the reason why you have given that main point, and then the E is an example, and P is the main point. Because I don't want this video to be so long, I'm going to have to ask you to download my eGuide, Answer Without Rambling, how new managers answer difficult questions without freezing, without over explaining, or losing credibility in the workplace. I'm going to drop the link in the description below, so make sure to grab your copy. It's totally free. So whenever you're asked a difficult question, ask for clarification, then frame your answers in a structure that helps you not to ramble, as well as makes it easy for the person or people in the room to follow your train of thought as you give the answer. Point three is to pace yourself. When you're nervous, it is proven that you may start to speak a lot faster. This is because of that fight or flight syndrome that I mentioned earlier. What does this fight or flight syndrome do for you? Is your brain's system to make sure that you are safe. If your brain determines that this particular question is very threatening and is likely to make you lose credibility as a leader, is putting you at risk in any way or form, it's going to try to keep you safe. And what happens is you have two decisions to make. Either you run away from that situation or you stay there and fight back. It's a very primitive inbuilt system in our bodies, or yes, in our bodies, where, for instance, if you were walking on the road and you see a lion on the road, that system, that fight or flight syndrome sets in. So it's either you run from the lion or you be a little bit of a Samson and fight back. Well, this is why it's so difficult in a public speaking setting. You're there, do you run away from the crowd or do you stay there? Which is what makes a lot of people or some people to start shaking, their voices start to shake, their hearts start to beat faster because the heart is trying to pump enough blood to the brain, which is doing a lot of thinking at that particular point in time. But in your workspace, you already know you cannot literally get up and run away. I hope you don't. But what happens is that you then want to rush through that answer so that you can be done. And hopefully that meeting can end without being asked more difficult questions. But I want you to stop running or even trying to fight through that experience. Difficult questions will often come, but they are not difficult because you're dumb or because you're incompetent. Most times you even know the answer. It's just that you're struggling to put it into words and express yourself confidently in that particular point in time, which is why I gave you point two, structure your answers. With point three, where you're pacing your responses, you're not rushing into answering that question. You have asked for clarification, so that has given you, you have bought some time. Like I said before, you have bought some time. Now you can count in your mind one, two before answering, or even take maybe 3 seconds to put your thoughts together in that structure, like I mentioned before. Then you start to answer. Even when you start answering, it's also important that you don't rush, because when you're rushing or speaking fast, you may end up losing the person that you're speaking to, or you may even end up speaking so fast that they're not even sure what you told them. And so they are most likely to ask you more difficult questions because the way you answered the first one wasn't convincing. Speaking fast is not a sign of confidence, because I know sometimes people feel like if I speak through this response fast enough, it will show that I am confident. But many times than not, it doesn't really show that. On the contrary, speaking at a slower, grounded pace shows that you are more confident. So avoid rushing through the answers and go at a slower rate. Just try and go at a slower rate than you'd normally answer difficult questions now that you have seen this video. If you've liked everything I've shared so far, I want you to hit the like button, share this video, and then if you are not subscribed, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's move on to the fourth point. The fourth and the fifth points are actually my best. So the fourth point is to make a habit of asking yourself top questions at work. Listen, as a new manager, you're no longer responsible for just your work. You're responsible for your work as well as the work and results of your team members. So it becomes even important, more important rather, that you not only are on top of things by way of doing things and making sure that everything has been completed, but make it a practice to ask yourself difficult questions. For instance, if you have just made a decision about how to progress a particular matter or a particular task, ask yourself this question. If my line manager were to question this decision I just made, or if the senior management team were to question this decision that I made, how am I going to defend the decision? If your team is not performing well, ask yourself, why are we not hitting our targets? And then when you have the answer, ask yourself why that exists, the reason that is making you not to hit your target exists. And then ask another why and another why until you come to a response or an answer that works. But this is not just for you to be able to answer difficult questions. It's not just to help you with your communication skills. It also helps you with your leadership and your problem solving skills. For instance, if you're not meeting your targets and you ask yourself, why aren't we hitting our targets? The answer that you get may help you to come up with a strategy or a tactic to change the narrative and improve your performance with regards to that particular target that you were before now not meeting. So it's not just for your communication skills. It helps you with your general critical thinking skills. It helps you with your problem solving skills as well as your leadership skills because you're seeing problems before anybody else sees it and you're solving those problems so that by the time you get into a meeting, you're not there to defend or to excuse or explain a shortfall. You're there to probably say, this is what happened during the week or during the month, and this was what we did to correct it so that it didn't linger. And that shows that you're thinking as a leader, not just someone who is performing tasks because they've been asked to perform it. So that's the fourth way to be able to answer tough questions at work without unraveling. You already have the answer because you asked yourself those questions before somebody else got to ask you. So we've talked about asking for clarification. We've talked about using a structure, pacing yourself, don't rush. We've talked about making a habit of asking yourself difficult questions. Now, the fifth way to answer tough questions without unraveling is to practice answering tough questions in non-threatening environments. What do I mean by non-threatening environment? Those questions that you have made a habit of asking yourself in the previous point, imagine you walked up to your friend, another manager in another unit, or even in another organization, or your group of professional friends gather together to say, hey, here are my thoughts and my points that I'm going to be presenting in our meeting next week. Could you ask me any question that you believe would be maybe asked in during the meeting? Your professional friends can use their professional insights to ask you difficult questions, and then you practice answering those questions. You can also join a speaking club where you can ask and answer difficult questions amongst yourself as a way of building your thinking and your speaking muscles. Another way you can do it is to literally turn on your video camera and answer some of these difficult questions that often come up in your own organization during your own meetings, and then answer those questions as though you were in the meeting. When you're done answering those questions, review the video to see how you answered it, how you phrased your sentences and your responses, where you could have done better, where you got everything, and then see how you can improve in the next recording. When you do this, you're teaching your brain that these questions are not as scary or career threatening as you initially would think they were. So that when you're asked such questions in a meeting, you would have already known that, oh, this is just a part of work, and then you can answer. Or you can also even use those ways that you have learned to phrase your sentences, to phrase your responses. You adopt those frameworks to then answer the question that you have been asked without losing credibility or being nervous about it. Now, if you're looking for a system or a space where you can practice answering such difficult questions and other work communication scenarios, I would like to invite you to join us at the Rehearsal Lab. The Rehearsal Lab is a low pressure room that I created for new leaders, team leads, supervisors, and professionals who would generally want to improve how they communicate at work. We'll come there. We're not coming to teach, we're coming to practice. So we'll have things every month that we practice through. You learn how to speak in those scenarios. You have other managers, your peers, and as well as myself, give you constructive feedback. And then you repeat. That do, rinse, and repeat would help you sharpen your thinking process, as well as your speaking skills. So if that sounds interesting to you, please click the link in the description below to register to join us in this month's edition, which is literally next week, Saturday. I look forward to seeing you in class. So, right now, we've talked about the 5 ways that you can confidently answer difficult questions at work. If you notice, I didn't go telling you to say A, B, or C because I believe that if you if you understand how things work within your portfolio, you already know a lot about what is usually being asked. Most times it's just understanding that I just have to take my time. I have to ask them for clarification if I'm not sure. Even if it's your most senior leader who has asked you a question, if you do not understand the question that they asked, request that they ask you that question maybe in a different way, or you can ask it in the way that you heard it or you understood it, to give them the opportunity to either say yes, that's what I want to know, or say no and then ask it in a different way. And then we talked about pacing yourself when you're asked a question. We talked about making a habit of asking yourself difficult questions, and finally practicing answering difficult questions in low pressure moments or environments, so that when you get into high stakes moments, it won't be as threatening as before. Now, if you found this video helpful and would like to know more about how to improve your communication skills at work, and I'm talking practical skills that you can take up to improve your speaking and your leadership at work, then make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you turn on the notification bell. Another video that I'm also going to be sharing with you soon is on how to answer a question or what to say when you don't know the answer. Because there are different kinds of difficult questions, and it helps to know what to say when you absolutely don't know the answer to the questions being asked. If you would love to know when I drop that video, make sure that you subscribe. And if you're watching this video after I have made the video, then it should be on the screen somewhere for you to click on to watch. Thank you for watching today's live, and I hope to see you in my next video.